me ask you something. Have you ever opened your lab results online, looked at all the numbers, all the abbreviations, all the red and green highlights, and immediately thought, what the hell? Maybe you thought, what does any of this even mean? Or maybe worse, you started going to Dr. Google and you typed in, what does high white blood count me? Why is my vitamin D low? Should I be worried if my ALT is elevated? And you know what? Before you know it, you're 14 tabs deep into Google. You're reading conflicting information and you're half convinced that you're dying. And somehow you're also more confused than when you started. And if that sounds familiar, I need for you to hear this first. Yes, it is completely normal to not fully understand your lab results. But here's the bigger truth. Just because it's normal does not mean that it should be. Because, in my opinion, one of the biggest failures in modern healthcare is that patients are often given incredibly important health information without being taught how to understand it. So today, I want to talk to you about why it happens, why it matters more than people realize, and what not understanding your labs may actually be costing you. So let's start with the obvious. Why do lab results feel so overwhelming? You know why? Because they're not written for us. They're not written for patients. They're written for medical professionals. I mean, just plain and simple. So let's dig even further into it. So your lab portal may say things like hemoglobin, hematocrit, creatinine, ALT, TSH, MCV, AST, WBC, all of these abbreviations. And unless you've worked in healthcare or you studied medicine, because it's a hobby or so, those terms may as well be another language. Because you know what? Like, real talk, honestly, they kind of are. And healthcare has developed its own vocabulary, right? It's shorthand and it's its own language. And remember, most of it has derived from Latin, anyways. And while that makes sense for providers, it creates a huge disconnect for patients. And because now you're expected to receive this complex data, interpret unfamiliar terminology, understand the ranges, determine the severity, and somehow know what matters most, all without proper context. And that's overwhelming for anyone. And when you think about it, we're all unique. And so we all have our own metrics, right? And so it's not because you're unintelligent or anything like that. It was just because, one, we were never taught how to interpret medical data. All right, so that's one point. And now this is where it becomes a little bit more serious because a lot of people think, well, if I don't understand, I'll just trust my doctor. And okay, let's be clear. Yeah, sure, okay, trust your doctor. But the danger comes when we patients assume that if my doctor didn't mention it, it must not matter. And having that philosophy can be dangerous because, doctors are human, they're people. And healthcare is fast paced, they're overwhelmed, they're short staffed, appointments are already short, right? And so, because of that, things will get overlooked. Explanations oftentimes get rushed. Follow ups get delayed, like, oh, come back in 3 months, 6 months, and, life happens. And so, if you don't understand your labs yourself, you lose your ability to one, advocate for yourself, ask better questions, notice patterns, and participate in your own care. So let me just say this one more time. If you don't understand your health information, you cannot fully participate in your care. And that, my dear friends, that affects outcomes because patients who do understand ask better questions, follow plans better, recognize warning signs sooner, and feel more empowered because clarity directly impacts action, and action impacts health. So let's look at a third point. Now, what do most people do when they get lab results? And I call it the trusty old Dr. Google, right? So they go to Dr. Google or just Google and listen, I get it. I understand why. Google it has a wealth of information. And, because when people feel confused, they seek answers. But with Google, Google just gives you like general information. It's not personalized understanding. So what one metric or what one reading may be for one person may not serve for you because Google does not know your history. Google doesn't know your medications. It doesn't know your diagnoses. It doesn't even know your trends. It doesn't know your context. It's just so broad. It doesn't pick that picture. And so when you Google, why is my cholesterol elevated, right? You'll probably get like 12 different reasons, conflicting opinions, worst case scenarios, and it just causes more confusion and instead of clarity. And as a result, you have anxiety. And Google often gives people more information, but less understanding. And I just want to point out that that is a very important distinction because information and understanding are not the same thing. This right here, those reasons that I just brought to your attention, those three reasons, is exactly why I have decided to build Alvora Health because of just my personal experience, which I will delve into, but I have over 20 years of navigating the healthcare systems and trust me, I saw it firsthand, right? And so I know how common this problem is. People are constantly, people, including myself now, we're being handed these results, these diagnoses, these recommendations. To understand them, just be like, all right, I'll see you in 3 months. Have a nice life. You're all right. And then, I remember thinking, why is the burden always on us, to figure these things out, right? And why do we have to Google everything or go on Reddit and or even Facebook groups and just hope things, hope that these folks that we talk to interpret things correctly just to understand our own health. And that actually didn't make any sense to me because we're all individual, we're all unique, and we all have our own different circumstances. And so I built Elvora Health to bridge that gap and to help people take their complex health information and turn it into something understandable because I believe that patients deserve clarity and not confusion. So, if you've ever looked at your lab results and you felt overwhelmed, let me just reassure you you're not behind, you're not bad at this, and you're not overthinking. Just bottom line, healthcare is complex. And it is completely normal to struggle understanding something that was never designed for us to easily interpret. And I'll just say that again. It's completely normal to struggle understanding something that was never designed for us to easily interpret. But you do deserve to understand it because your health is too important to leave to guessing. Because better clarity leads to better understanding, better decisions, and ultimately better outcomes. So if this resonated with you, subscribe because in the next video, I'm going to talk about what you may be missing if you don't fully understand your diagnosis and why misunderstanding your condition could be affecting your care more than you realize. Thank you for watching.